The largest earthquake to strike Malaysia in over a century just hit Borneo, and almost no one is talking about it. At 12:57 a.m. local time on February 23, 2026, a magnitude 7.1 earthquake ruptured beneath the Sulu Sea, 55 kilometers northwest of Kota Belud, 620 kilometers deep. 6 million people felt moderate shaking. 78 million more felt it ripple outward across Sarawak, Brunei, the southern Philippines, into high-rise apartments in Singapore. The strongest seismic event recorded near Malaysian territory since 1923. That is 103 years, the largest magnitude ever instrumentally recorded this close to Borneo. Deputy Prime Minister Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, chairman of the National Disaster Management Committee, activated emergency monitoring across Sabah's coastal districts. Fire and rescue teams deployed from Putatan to Kedat. Met Malaysia issued continuous bulletins through the night. No casualties, no structural damage, no tsunami. The official story ends there. It should not. But here is the detail that tells the real story. 97 kilometers south of the epicenter, at the base of Mount Kinabalu in Kundasang, there is a stone memorial at Kiau Gap View. It was erected in 2016 by the Sabah state government. Granite base, bronze plaque, 18 names carved into the face, students, teachers, mountain guides, all killed on June 5, 2015, when a magnitude 6.0 earthquake, shallow, violent, only 18 kilometers deep, ripped rock faces off Southeast Asia's highest peak and sent boulders onto climbers who had no warning and no time. Families visit every year. They lay flowers at the base. Some touch the names with their fingertips. This new earthquake was a 7.1, more than 10 times the energy release, but it ruptured 620 kilometers below the surface, deep enough to shake everything, too deep to destroy anything. And when the ground beneath that memorial shook at 12:57 a.m., those 18 names carved in stone vibrated in the dark. No one was standing there to feel it. But the earth beneath Sabah was doing something it has done fewer than 5 times in recorded history. It was reminding a country that does not build for earthquakes what a real one feels like. To understand how Borneo arrived at this moment, you have to watch the timeline accelerate. On February 10th, 2025, a magnitude 3.8 earthquake struck Kota Marudu in northern Sabah. And Malaysia's National Disaster Agency, NADMA, published a preparedness advisory naming multiple active fault lines running beneath western Sabah: the Crocker Fault System, the Mensaban Fault, the Tarakan Basin, 200 kilometers of fracture zones beneath cities that were never designed to sit on top of them. By March 28th, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake had devastated Myanmar and shaken Bangkok, and Malaysian structural engineers were publishing urgent warnings that Kota Kinabalu, Sandakan, and Tawau had all been built under outdated codes with zero seismic design provisions, calling for immediate retrofitting across Sabah. In April, Professor Azlan Adnan, head of the Seismology and Earthquake Engineering Research Group at University Technology Malaysia, warned publicly that the country must adopt more robust seismic standards. Bridges, elevated rail systems, glass facade high-rises, none of it was ready. On June 5th, 2025, the 10th anniversary of the Mount Kinabalu earthquake, families gathered at the Kiau Gap View Memorial. 2 survivors from the Singaporean student group returned, Emir and Prajesh, both now 22, summiting the peak that nearly killed them as children. Former Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong called their climb courageous. The ceremony ended with flowers laid at the base of the plaque and a promise repeated: never again. On February 22, 2026, at 16:57 UTC, the Sulu Sea fractured 620 kilometers beneath the surface. The energy climbed upward through the Philippine Sea Plate, through the subduction zone, into the bedrock beneath 84 million people. By 12:57 a.m. on February 23rd, Sabah was awake. The epicenter sat beneath the Sulu Sea in the collision zone where three tectonic plates converge: the Eurasian plate, the Indo-Australian plate, the Philippine Sea plate, all pressing against each other beneath northern Borneo. This is a subduction zone. The Philippine Sea plate is diving beneath the Sunda plate, and 620 kilometers down, deeper than the International Space Station orbits above, a section of that descending slab snapped. Deep focus earthquakes behave differently from shallow ones. The energy does not concentrate. It radiates outward through solid mantle rock in every direction, dispersing across enormous distances before it reaches the surface. That is why 84 million people felt the shaking. That is also why nobody died. Depth absorbed the violence. At 620 kilometers, and the ground rolls. At 18 kilometers, the depth of the 2015 Kinabalu earthquake, the ground opens and the mountain falls apart. Here is the problem that is not making headlines. Malaysia did not have a seismic building code until 2017. The Malaysian National Annex to Eurocode 8 was published 2 full years after 18 people died on Mount Kinabalu. Every building in Sabah constructed before that date was designed with zero earthquake resistance. Every school, every hospital, every apartment block and waterfront hotel in Kota Kinabalu, Sandakan, and Tawau. No reinforced structural framing to absorb lateral forces. Shallow foundations sitting on loose sediment. Unsecured roofing materials and signage ready to become projectiles. Unreinforced brick with concrete floors, precast concrete frames with masonry infill. The exact construction types that the USGS flagged in its February 23rd impact assessment as highly vulnerable to earthquake shaking. In 2023, researchers at University Malaysia Sabah visually inspected 555 buildings across 7 districts. More than 160 buildings in Kota Kinabalu and Kudat alone were assessed as vulnerable to grade 4 damage, partial structural collapse, not from a 7.1, from a moderate earthquake. The cost to fix it? 5 to 10% of structural costs per building. Moad Hisham. Moad Anip, Director General of Met Malaysia, confirmed to reporters that this was the strongest earthquake to affect the country in 11 years. What he did not say is what every seismologist studying the region already knows. The Crocker fault system will rupture again. The question is whether anything built above it survives. And then it got worse. Not worse in the way you expect. No one died on February 23rd. No building collapsed. No road split open. The worst is what happened 11 years ago on that same mountain, and what has not changed since. On the morning of June 5th, 2015, Robbie Sapingi was leading climbers near the summit of Mount Kinabalu, 4,095 meters above sea level. He had done it hundreds of times. Colleagues called him one of the best mountain guides in Sabah. Funny, easygoing, warm. His deputy president at the Mountain Guide Association, Wilson, considered him a mentor and a brother. When the earth cracked open at 7:15 a.m. and boulders broke loose from the rock face above, Robbie did not run downhill. He stepped between the falling rock and the climbers behind him. He died standing in their path. Joseph Solungjan was newer to the guiding team, but already known for his kindness. The night before the earthquake, his older sister Lena called him. She was a nurse at Ranau Hospital. They talked about a tree she had asked him to find near their family home in Bundu Tuhan. Small things, easy conversation. She never expected it would be the last one. When the quake struck the next morning, Lena was called to work. She dialed Joseph. No answer. Again, nothing. She was only there when his body arrived, airlifted from the mountain to Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Kota Kinabalu. Valerian Joannes was one of 10 children. His mother, Saudim Sumbin, had last seen him a week earlier at a family gathering. Healthy, hardworking, loved by everyone on the mountain. When his name appeared on the casualty list, Sudim traveled to Kundasang. 10 years later, standing at the same memorial in June 2025, she told reporters the loss still feels like it happened yesterday. Ricky Masarin. 7 Singaporean school children from Tanjong Katong Primary, all 12 years old, on an adventure trip meant to be the highlight of their year. Masahiro Ozaki, a Japanese climber who died shielding one of those students with his own body. 18 people, gone in seconds. And the mountain guides who survived, Cornelius, Christopher, dozens of others, carried the living down through freezing temperatures, blocked trails, and aftershocks for 10 hours, using their shoulders as stepping stones over debris fields, their bodies as cushions beneath the ropes. Those are the names on the memorial at Kiao Gap View. The memorial that shook at 12:57 a.m. The official status from the USGS is a green alert, low likelihood of casualties, low likelihood of economic losses. The Sabah Fire and Rescue Department Operations Center reported 0 emergency calls, 0 incidents. Met Malaysia continues monitoring. The U.S. Tsunami Warning Center confirmed no ocean threat within minutes of the rupture. Deputy Prime Minister Ahmad Zahid Hamidi directed patrols across coastal districts as a precaution. Residents were urged to remain calm. Case closed. Routine deep focus event. No further significant seismic activity expected, except nothing about this is routine. The 200-kilometer Crocker Fault system beneath western Sabah is still loaded with tectonic stress. The Manila Trench is still subducting. The Sulu Trench is still active. 3 converging plates are still pressing against the foundation of a state where more than 160 buildings have already been assessed as vulnerable to partial collapse in a moderate earthquake. And the seismic code that was supposed to fix all of this is only 9 years old, in a state where most structures went up decades before anyone in government believed Malaysia needed one. How do you tell 500,000 residents of Kota Kinabalu that the earthquake which shook their city at 12:57 a.m. was the safe version? How do you explain to the families who gathered at Kiao Gap View last June, who stood before 18 names and repeated the words "never again," that the buildings their children sleep in tonight were not designed to survive what killed their loved ones in 2015? And if a magnitude 7.1, the largest seismic event near Malaysian territory in 103 years, struck Borneo and did not crack a single wall because it ruptured 620 kilometers deep, what happens when the next one ruptures at 18? At the base of Mount Kinabalu, a stone memorial holds 18 names. The granite held, the plaque held, the mountain above it still stands, but the buildings around it, the schools, the hospitals, the homes where families slept through the warning they were lucky enough to survive, were never built to do the same.